It is officially spooky season, and that means we've got some really special stuff for you on this October edition of Bannerman Banter. You're definitely going to want to stick around for that, plus some news and updates on one of our title topics. That's right, we've got a Night of the Seven Kingdoms update, as well as some stuff from the galaxy far, far away, a special guest, and so much more. Welcome to Bannerman Banter. Hey, everybody, welcome into Bannerman Banter alongside my buddy Sean. I'm Zach, bringing you another fantastic episode that we've got on deck. I'm a little off center, apparently, so let me try to rectify that really quick. Apparently, I didn't prep for that in the green room before we started. That's my bad. But welcome to the show. We've got some really great new stuff to talk about, as well as visiting our Gauntlet of Thrones discussion and a very special Flix Busters topic spooky edition. Sean, this is shaping up to be a pretty fun episode, I think.
Yeah, for sure. First off, if you're watching now or watching after the fact, I apologize for the late start. Things are changing around here, and it's just hard to get a handle on what direction things are heading in terms of timing on Mondays. But I want to do my best to work with Zach to make sure he's good, and I only have so much within our control sometimes, though. I'm excited for these topics, man. I'm excited to talk some Star Wars. Randy and I know what we're talking about when it comes to this topic, and I will forewarn everyone. It's a pretty big spoiler if true. So if you're trying to stay like spoiler free for Ahsoka season 2, this would not be the topic for you. Um, that being said, we're doing Halloween tonight for Flixbusters, 1978 John Carpenter classic. Uh, Whether we have graphics for it or not remains to be seen. Thank you, Canva. But honestly, man, I have the Game of Thrones itch. Like it's really bad right now. It hasn't been this bad for me, and probably since right before House of the Dragon season 2. Just you and I talking occasionally about some things, and then I'll go on like Twitter or whatever it's called these days, and I'll see something, or then I'll see a clip of something, and I just have the itch, but I don't know how I'm gonna find time to watch said shows.
Yeah, man. I mean, even our Gauntlet of Thrones discussion has been giving me the itch to go back because we've been running these episodes through an AI program, and you wrote me earlier and was like, apparently the AI program hates us or hates our show because it keeps giving us some really fantastic 1v1 matchups to try to decide on. Our last episode, we had to pick between the Spoils of War and Baylor. We basically decided that we were going to try to find a way to incorporate Baylor back into the rotation because it's just that damn good of an episode. And we've got another really interesting one on tap for you. And then there's been a new update as of the time of this recording, the same day of this recording, if I know my dates correctly. Some breaking news about some of the stuff to look forward to in the new TV series, which is going to be a Night of the Seven Kingdoms. So we've got that to look forward to. And like you said, an Ahsoka centered spoiler to look forward to. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in the other member of our crew to talk about this Ahsoka spoiler. You mentioned him off the top. You and Randy are a lot more familiar with Ahsoka related news and content just because y'all have been talking about it more on your sister program. You've been doing a rewatch as well. So I'm really curious, A, how the rewatch is going. Have you guys encountered anything new during this rewatch that's helping you build a deeper appreciation for the show? And B, just what is this possible spoiler that Star Wars fans can look forward to?
Randy, why don't you start with the rewatch?
So the rewatch has been a lot of fun. Obviously, you're going to pick up on some things here and there that you didn't maybe the first one or two times you watched. And that's the one thing I like about series like that. Even with Game of Thrones, like every rewatch, there's always those little things you kind of pick up on that you never really paid attention to before, because since you know the source material, it's a lot easier to kind of focus on little details you may have missed before. And like for me, it's been more or less like just personality traits, things that I missed that call back to, like, for example, Rebels or Clone Wars. That's really kind of deepened my appreciation for the characters. Obviously, Ray Stevenson's performance holds up amazingly, and it just rewatching it, knowing he's passed, and having that experience of Balin's skull from the first time, it's just like it almost hurts knowing that with season two, Rory McCann has such huge shoes to fill in
Yeah.
reprising that role. And I mean, I hope he's up for the challenge. I know he's going to put his best foot forward. It's just one of those things where just the presence and the looks he gave, like he didn't even have to speak. You could almost tell what he was thinking just with his facial expressions and stance and presence. And it's such a huge thing to have to look back at, and you're just like, man, how are they going to do it? But it's it's exciting to know season two's on the way, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Apparently, Natasha Liu Bordizzo also posted a little behind the scenes image that was just a couple of shadow outlines on a pillar that apparently there's certain parts of the internet that are trying to deep dive and dissect all of that as well. Um, Sean, Randy mentioned the Balin skull situation, but I want to expand a little bit further. Obviously, you can contribute on the Ray Stevenson side of things, but what do you think about just the overall show chemistry? All of the characters comprehensively, how they interact with each other, what their dynamic is like. Has your perspective on show chemistry changed during this rewatch?
I think it's important to remember, for my case anyway, I was sick as a dog during two of these episodes when they aired. One of them, like I believe it was the episode where Thrawn, and Zach, you know how big of a Thrawn fan I am. I had to miss doing our review for that day because of how sick I was, and I think I chimed in like 10 seconds at the end of Johnny and Randy's stream, which was, by the way, was Randy's first series of streams with us when that show aired. Um, I I'm blown away by Ray Stevenson. Like, I knew I really liked his performance going into it, but it doesn't matter who he's with on screen in this series. He seemingly has chemistry with all of them. And you know what people say about the whole common denominator thing, like he's going to be missed. I always forget the actor's name who played the Hound, um, but I know he
Rory
had
McCann.
yeah, I know he had a close personal relationship with Ray Stevenson, which is a fitting another fitting thing to recast him for. But like it's a much different role than what we see with the Hound, and I'm curious how that chemistry is going to translate in season two, because in season one, whoever Balin's on screen with, he's amazing. The one, I think, issue I still have, and I don't believe the chemistry is very good between the two. Um, I do think it's gotten a little better. We've done what, 6 episodes now, Randy?
Yep.
Episode 7 Wednesday. Um, and this is a problem because they're kind of like the headliners. Is Ahsoka and Sabine on screen? I just it feels a little wooden at times, if I'm being honest, between the two of them, and I don't think they're firing out on all cylinders. Um, However, I need to see what happens when they meet back up in episode 7 and episode 8, because I might feel differently. Maybe that was intended to be that way after them having some time apart and now them finding one another again. I don't know, but to me, it's pretty glaring because Shin and Balin have chemistry. Balin and everybody has chemistry. Even Ezra and Sabine in live action had chemistry. So to me, it is a little alarming when I feel like I always forget the guy's name, but when the droid that David Tennant plays there
Hu
and
Yang.
Ahsoka have far better on-screen chemistry than Ahsoka and Sabine. I do think that's an issue.
Yeah, that's fair. I when I watched it the first time through, I did notice that it felt like there were some groupings that felt like they had better interactions than others. And it could be the acting, it could also be the writing of the lines for those particular pairings. It could have been the production, it could have been maybe there was better chemistry in a certain other shot, but maybe something was said or phrased differently and the directors wanted to go a different direction with it. There's a numerous different reasons why something could have gone awry. Um, but I am curious to see how season two is affected by that chemistry, if it gets better, if it gets worse, etc. And do you feel like the potential spoiler you're about to dish on could be impacted in any way by what we've seen chemistry wise in the show so far?
I would say 1,000,000,000%, considering who's at the helm of it.
Well, by all means, please dive in because I'm as curious as the rest of the audience. I have no clue what you're alluding to.
Uh, we talked about this on our show about a week ago, I think, week and a half ago, Randy, Johnny, and I.
About a
And
week ago.
it's not something I've just blurted out to a bunch of people while talking pop culture things, because I do know it's the type of spoiler that, like, you want to kind of judge the waters, but when you're doing content creation, you almost have to be open a little bit to spoilers and leaks, because it just happens, even if you don't want it to. And the main player at play here is Balin Skull, and they just finished filming this big, massive fight sequence to wrap up principal photography on Ahsoka season two. And it's like this very large scale thing, far bigger than anything that they did in season one. And the two people at play are, or the two people going up against one another in this big fight sequence, um, is Balin and Anakin. That's the fight. The fight is apparently Balin, however you want to pronounce it, and Anakin is the fight, aka Hayden Christensen. So I don't know if we're going full on Mortis and he's actually there because he can be there. I don't know. I don't think it's World Between Worlds stuff, because the way it was put out there by Jeff Snyder's co-host was like this was a big set piece. This wasn't just on some like blue screen or green screen like they did with season one with Ahsoka and Anakin. There, this was an on location thing that they spent a lot of money on to do. So the only thing I can think of is it's on Mortis, and or has to do with the people from Mortis. And when you're touching that stuff, I mean, anything's at play. Anything can happen.
Randy, you've been doing this rewatch and have seen Anakin's impact on season one, Hayden Christensen's acting chops back into the galaxy far, far away. What do you make of this announcement? Is this the right amount of Hayden to have in the show, or does it cross a metaphorical line?
So if you look back at Clone Wars, at the Mortis arc, Ahsoka and Anakin were chosen essentially by the Mortis gods. So it makes sense that at the center of it, if Ahsoka season 2 is giving us anything to do with the Mortis gods, that Anakin and Ahsoka are involved with it. Obviously, we've seen that with The Last Jedi, you've seen Yoda being able to interact with the environment, and that obviously in the books they talked about how, depending on how powerful, uh, the Jedi was, or how powerful the Force Ghost is, they can interact with the environment and be more a solid form than what we see just visions of like with Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy. So I would think that if this isn't in like the World Between Worlds, or if it isn't in a place like the Mortis realm, where it makes a lot of sense to have Anakin be more physical there because of the Force working differently there than it probably does in the actual galaxy itself. It's to me, I think this could end up, obviously if it overall happens and how well it's shot, if it's not like a dream or anything like that, that this could be like huge. Like this could be one for the ages in terms of just overall skill with a lightsaber, because we all know Hayden loved doing his own stunts with the lightsaber training in Revenge of the Sith, and getting back into it with even the Obi-Wan series. It felt like he never left. So it's really cool. And the fact that we know it's possible, because based on all the reading, based on how they've developed the Force Ghost and just the Force in general over the years, that especially now that's what's canon, this fight is definitely very possible. And I think it's going to be probably one of the best live action lightsaber duels we'll have seen, whether it's screen or small screen.
I gotta stress for anyone listening to this now or after the fact or a month from now, I don't know the context of any of this at all. I can't sit here and say that it's Mortis. I mean, if you guys listen to the Hot Mic with John Roca and Jeff Snyder, I think you guys know their track record, and you might not like those guys. They definitely can be douches at times, but their track record with stuff is like 90% or higher more often than not. But usually it's coming out of Jeff's mouth. This came out of John's mouth. But Jeff seemed to back up what John was saying. So, yeah, we just don't know the context. Other than this, I don't know if Randy, you just mentioned this, but I've seen this out there. People suggesting, well, maybe it's a fight from the Clone Wars, and it's a flashback, and the two met when he was younger. The report specifically was Hayden Christensen versus was it Rory McCann? Is that the actor's name again? So that's what it was listed as.
So Sean,
which is cool in its own right. Like
it is
Star Wars and Game of Thrones fan.
I was about to say, like, one of those tie-ins is something that you and I are really familiar with, because we're both big Star Wars fans and big Game of Thrones fans, and Randy, I know you are as well. But Sean and I have been able to, discuss those two things at length over the years. And Sean, you remember like season 8 and even some of the fight sequences before that. Roy McCann has shown himself to be a rather skilled swordsman in Game of Thrones, but has been a few years to not put too fine a point on it. Does he need a little bit of practice to get back into the quote unquote swing of things in order to present the type of sword play that Randy is hoping for?
Interestingly enough, apparently he has gotten just that as part of the report. Apparently, him and Hayden Christensen have been like rehearsing this for quite some time. To I guess like a month ago, Hayden had to back out of a Comic Con. I don't know, not the Comic Con, but like an expo event because they were doing that still. So I have full confidence in him though. Like he was amazing in Game of Thrones, did a lot of his own stuff. I'm way more worried about dialogue scenes with him than I am his physical performance.
Randy, how do you feel about the potential choreography of this sequence? Do you think it will carry the same type of emotional weight that they would have hoped to convey if Ray Stevenson was still around? Or are the Star Wars fans only going to be watching this scene going, I wish Ray was here. I wish Ray was here.
I think it really depends on what episode we get the scene in, right? If it's like near the end of the season where we've gotten the chance to really get behind Rory and his performance to see just what he's bringing to the table and how he's making the character his own, but while keeping it the same, then by that time I would hope that we'll have all the story context, the dialogue will match what what the sabers are saying in terms of their choreography and the story they're telling with their fight, because we all know a lot of lightsaber duels are based around the old samurai films and just how you tell a story just through a fight without saying words. And now if we get something like this like right off the bat, then yeah, it's going to be difficult because you're going to be looking at it going, this could have been Ray Stevenson.
Right.
We don't. It's like we know the character, but we're not getting the same vibe. The look is. It's like he looks like him, but he doesn't have that feeling you get when you see Ray Stevenson on screen. But I don't. Something like that though, it tells me it's either going to be could be mid-season, it could be the end of the season. It really depends on the story they want to tell, and if we get enough time with Rory as Balin to be able to determine if we're going to be missing Ray, which we know we will be at the beginning of the
Sure.
season, but by mid or end, are we going to be like, wow, he's doing a really good job? I'm enjoying him as Balin, and that I think that's kind of where we're going to have to be. It's going to be more of a it's cool to know the scene is going to happen. Now let's see what the context is and how far along Rory is as Balin to be able to really determine if we're going to really enjoy it or be missing Ray Stevenson.
Yeah, I think that's going to be key, right? Also, like, how huge is that for Rory's career? If he can go out there and go toe to toe with what Stevenson did in season one, to add that level of nuance to his game. And I'm not saying the Hound wasn't nuanced. The Hound has some big time moments and big time dialogue moments too, but to hit another range will open up all sorts of possibilities for him, especially seeing on this sort of scale. Randy, we're going to be moving on here to some Westeros talk. Can you stick around for a few, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I can stick around for a few, even though I really haven't boned up on the new stuff coming out. I've been more kind of waiting for season 3 of House of the Dragon more than anything.
We're going to be talking about that too.
We'll be getting into all of it. Do want to give a quick shout out to Flix Symmetry saying, whatever the context, I'm sad Ray wasn't able to experience this scene. I think that is a general consensus that the three of us can also agree with. And then some comments on how good of a swordsman Hayden is, that I think that can probably just elevate anybody that shares a scene with him when it comes to swordsmanship. So definitely looking forward to seeing that as well. And just want to give our thanks to Dustin for helping make this program possible. Sean, I know that there's a lot of people that do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Why don't we give them a quick shout before we move on in the program this evening?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for queuing that up. Big shout out to our channel sponsors, Ryan over at Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things NASCAR. Jesse Storytime Spectacular, guy who does all sorts of pop culture interviews. And Mr. Backtrack Cinema himself, aka Mr. Retro Cinema, Mr. Jason Nike. And thank you to all of our patrons, too. Without you, it'd be hard to do what we do.
Yeah, we've got some really great patrons. We got some really great people that help out with things behind the scenes. And then there's a few people that show up in rotation to be in front of the scenes as well. So all of that combines to help make this program possible. Going into stuff regarding A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, it was that we've gotten a couple of images, a couple of posters, a little bit of info that has come out like just today, that lets us know that even though we're not getting it this year, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is right around the corner. As soon as we finish up with the holiday season, we get to return to Westeros in a brand new fashion. All of the different pages are officially confirming that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is set to come out in spring, more specifically January. Gents, I don't know about you, but spring and January are not synonyms for me. It is still fucking winter when January comes around. Excuse my French.
Yeah, there's
That's a new one for me.
a big difference
Debuting.
between 40 below with wind chill and 10.
I mean, I don't experience quite those numbers, but I also just I don't believe any of that. It says this winter, spring is coming. This is the official Game of Thrones Twitter X page. Meet Dunk and A this January in hashtag A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, a new hashtag GOT series based on the novellas by George R. Martin. And then the pinned post as of 11 hours ago. Only on HBO Max, you have Sir Duncan the Tall on the right-hand side and Egg, a young bald-headed boy, handling his sword with him. And it says, a tall tale that became legend. HBO original, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, only on HBO Max. So we've gotten some new branding. A lot of the different profile images have changed on the various social platforms. We have gotten a very, very long hashtag, probably a hashtag that is longer than it needs to be. We've got a release date being in January. And Sean, didn't we get like some other official slash unofficial announcement that is kind of alluding to how each episode of this series will be kicking off?
Yeah, so there's a few things here. Let me pull it up. That make this a little bit different. And this wasn't one of the things that was mentioned today, but I read a few weeks back, and I can't say I'm thrilled with it. One of the things that's going to make this different is you're not going to get your standard 1 hour episodes. It sounds like a lot of them are in the 30 to 40 minute range, which I got to say, bit of a turnoff. No, no title sequence, so you're not getting your dun 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 dun. dun. It's just gonna do a logo straight.
Dun, 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 dun,
Correct.
dun, dun. None of
So
that.
correct, and the reason behind that is this isn't a big like global scale event. It's a small story, where House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones are more massive, all-encompassing stories. Um, so that's the excuse me, that's the reason for that. And then the show picks up 50 years after the last dragon has died. We'll focus on Targaryen politics from the POV of the commoners and not royalty. But the Targaryens, story-wise, are very much front and center.
Yeah, and I've read a portion of the first novella. I tried to make it my bedtime reading, and then life picked up, and I just got naturally tired instead of letting a book help me get tired, and didn't need it quite as often. But what I've read involves um, a lot of elements that kind of resemble RuneScape. You fellows remember RuneScape, the online quest
Yep.
medieval type game where you would compete in different quests and competitions, and it would allow you to acquire new armors and new swords and help you level up and become an even better soldier slash knight than you were before. um, Everything that I read about Sir Duncan the Tall was that he never really got officially knighted. He was a squire for a knight, and then the knight that he squired for passed away while they were traveling. And so now he's just carrying the old man's armor that's kind of outdated and trying to take on quests and challenges and compete in tournaments just to scrape by and make a living. And as he competes and finishes in higher places, he's able to use that coin to buy more chainmail, a better shield, a better helmet, etc., etc. And there's very little interaction with the royalty. They may make an appearance, or maybe one of their distant cousins is in charge of the tournament or something like that. But he's very common, and he's dealing with just the people who are like the marketing directors essentially, or the event master of ceremonies or something. Like, they're not dealing with Targaryens directly. And so this will be on a very smaller scale than anything we've experienced in Game of Thrones. I'm thinking it's going to be like RuneScape possibly meets Monty Python and the Holy Grail set in Westeros. Like that's kind of the expectation that I'm setting myself up for. And if those expectations are exceeded, then great. But if they're not, then I'm not setting myself up too highly for it. But Randy, I know you said that you've been more looking forward to House of the Dragon, but how do you feel about getting a few episodes of what we've just described in January before we head back to Dragonstone and the dragons?
Well, it's interesting because for a minute there, it almost sounded like you were bringing up A Knight's Tale, and I was like, "Haven't we seen this before?"
Yeah, also that.
And but honestly, I don't, even though yes, Game of Thrones and House of Dragon are on the grander side of things, we only get small snippets here and there of the common folk and this and more or less how they
True.
suffer. More or less, it's not even their successes or how they live or anything. It's more how much they suffer and pretty much get the shit beat out of them. This is an opportunity to take a ride with the little folk for a change. The common man who and watch him struggle and his successes, his failures, watch the character grow. So it's as long as it's done right, as long as the dialogue is crisp and the acting is on par. We know we're going to get decent cinematography. We know they're going to be on location for a lot of stuff. But for the most part, if you can give me a compelling story that actually makes me want to root for this guy, then you know what? I'm fine with watching something like that because usually those types of stories, some of the best character arcs.
Yeah, I think character arc is definitely going to be a big part of this, a big component. Sean, I think back to season 1 of Game of Thrones where there wasn't a whole lot of magic. There weren't dragons yet. It was just medieval style world building and getting in tune and in touch with the characters in order to appreciate the show. Obviously, we've had a lot of dragons in House of the Dragon. We had a lot of dragons and grand scale fighting that took place in the final 2 or 3 seasons of the original Game of Thrones. But with this show being set 50 years after the last dragon and a good chunk of time before any of the stuff that we see in Game of Thrones, how do you feel about this particular timepiece where there's no dragons, no magic, and the story is gonna almost by default have to be character driven if there's none of this magic or technology or anything of that sort to kind of give you a sense of awe and wonder?
I mean, I can live with that just because some of the best episodes of Game of Thrones are not super magic based, if you will. Like, if you think of, I mean, I suppose Blackwater has the fire, but like even look at an episode that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, um, and you think about it, there's not a ton of magic involved in that massive battle. Then there's another battle where it's all magic. So um, I'm okay with that part. For me, I'm more worried about because this was shot for significantly less money. Like they went super cheap on the budget of this.
Mhm.
Um, it still needs to feel like Westeros, man. And if Westeros looks like it did during House of the Dragon, and then looks like it does during Game of Thrones, you're still gonna have to. It can't look cheap and shit. Even in early seasons of Game of Thrones, those first 2 seasons, where there's not nearly as many big set pieces, the show never looks bad. The set pieces never look bad. They look lived in and real and believable as if you're there. If they can capture that magic while telling the story, I think they'll be just fine.
It'll be interesting to see how much they drag this out because there's 3 novellas that center around Dunk and Egg. And the last I heard, this was supposed to be what, 6 episodes, Sean? And even then they're not full hour-long episodes.
Yeah, 6 episodes. Yep.
So we're getting 6 episodes. Um and they want this to be like a limited series, don't they? Like this isn't going to be an ongoing thing.
No, I believe they intend to do more.
So then the question becomes, are they doing 6 episodes about this one novella so that they can do a 3-part limited series?
That is my
Um,
impression.
that that seems like a bit much just based on what I've observed from the first novella.
I think it's
The
greed driven because they're making it for so cheap, right? Compared to what all the other blockbuster shows are being made for.
Well, I'm worried it's going to suffer from Hobbit syndrome, where a lot of creative liberties get taken and a lot of extrapolations are made and a lot of deviations occur in order to continue to drive the story until you finally decide to land the plane in the final episode, regardless of whether it's 30, 40, 50 minutes long, whatever. If you take too long getting to the point, then that's going to be just as dangerous for your program as anything else. um, Randy, did you have any issues with the first season of House of the Dragon, particularly in the first, I would say, 3 to 4 episodes, as far as getting interested in the characters, getting involved in what's taking place? How quickly did you get acclimated to a new Westeros show?
I think it took me like 2 or 3 episodes, just because, like you said, new characters, kind of fleshing out who they are, what they're about. Obviously, at a more of a quickened pace, given it wasn't exactly uh, a huge season, but ultimately it's like, because the acting was well done, and we had some good writing, and obviously it felt like Westeros. It didn't take as long as it could have. Now obviously, if some of that was off, then I could see myself kind of been like, all right, when am I going to figure who this person is? And that's but I didn't have to worry about that. Like you said, about 3 episodes I think total before I was like, all right, I'm super invested, let's go.
So consider then 3 episodes to get acclimated to characters would equate to half of this season if it's only going to be 6 episodes. Do you really feel like there's enough margin and enough grace in the Westeros world now for it to take half a season before people finally understand characters' motivations and have an understanding of what's going on? Can we really wait a half a season to better context, or is there going to be a little pressure to deliver in these first couple of episodes?
Well, I think with any new series, especially for a newer audience who may not be familiar with the source material, you're going to have to push a little bit in the first couple episodes to really drive the point home of the tone of the series, uh, character motivations, things like that. That's one of the things we've noticed with a lot of newer series, unless it's characters we know, like rewatch when you first watch, Daredevil Born Again, what the characters are, who they are, what they're about. So you could, once that came out, you can get right into it and no problem. But say something like season 1 of Andor, you're talking about a character you really know little to nothing about, and you're trying to give an idea of the world they're in, how the Empire really is, and then try to give us a reason to care about Cassian at the same time. That's why that took about 3 episodes before it really got going. With this, they will have to push a little bit, but if they can stick the landing with the season finale to really kind of push everything over, then taking half a season to get accustomed to a character, it could be worth it. But they have to stick the landing, and everything has to be on point.
Sean, based on what you have seen, heard, observed, etc., do you feel like that's a reasonable expectation for this particular show?
I think that should be the expectation, but I will sit here and tell you for the first time ever since you and I've talked Westeros related things, I'm not confident I hope I'm wrong. I hope this thing comes out and, isn't Game of Thrones, isn't House of the Dragon, but clearly is in that universe and feels worth our time. That's all I need this to be. It does not to be this need to be this big blockbuster hit. Um, so my expectations are low, and I'll be honest, I'm not confident those expectations are even going to be hit.
Well, we all set different ideas and hopes and expectations for things that are near and dear to us. And even if we say we're not setting a high bar, internally we kind of are. And it happens. I did it for the Kenobi series, unfortunately, and it did not live up to those expectations. I tried to lower them for the Ahsoka series, and it probably more or less lived up to them, except for a few areas. Um, I think my expectations were able to shift with House of the Dragon. I don't know if I was necessarily expecting it to hit the ground running in a Game of Thrones style or a Game of Thrones vibe, but I was hoping for something quote unquote good, whatever that objective definition may be. But uh, being able to see the pilot, being able to see the direction that they were going after the first few episodes, it gave me an inkling as to what the motivations are. I think since it's so contained and it's going to be so centered on just two characters, instead of having to learn about a whole family and the knights who serve them and who the rival families are and all of these political infightings that go on. Yes, there will be stuff about the Targaryens. There will be Targaryen politics at play, but being able to see it through the commoner's view, being able to see it through this lowly knight's view, along with the eyes of an innocent, all those different perspectives, I think can really help ground this show. And so we'll we'll see how it goes. Don't have to wait very long. We're already in October, and we're what 2 months away then. November, December, early January. So I guess 3 months. The rest of this month, the 11th month, and the 12th month. I know how to do math. So 3 months out from the debut of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And then supposedly, Sean, we're also going to be getting some more Westeros content later in the year in 2026, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the interesting part about this one is originally, and even as recent as during the summer, House of the Dragon season 3 was slated for a likely May release for next year. And then you see that this is going to come out in January. Let's assume it comes out mid-January just to play it safe. That means this thing will run through the beginning of March, more than likely, or at the very least, the end of February. I'm not sure I see them releasing House of the Dragon, you know, 3 months after that. I wouldn't be shocked if House of the Dragon, should they? Yes, they should, because it's way too fucking long in between seasons. Sorry. It just is. Um, but I very well could see them going to the August date that they used for season one. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm just telling people to be prepared.
No, I think that's the most realistic expectation. And being Game of Thrones fans and being Star Wars fans, we know what happens when a franchise releases too much in too short of a sequence. Take a look at The Last Jedi and then Solo. Those were not spaced out the way that they should have been. And unfortunately, Solo paid the price for it. I think if you do something into March, like you're saying, Sean, and then we're taking half of March and April and half of May, that's maybe 2 full months before the next piece of Westeros content comes out. And Randy, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's enough time for people to observe and digest and critique and then hit the reset button for whatever the next Westeros content is. That just seems like too tight a turnaround to me.
Well, and you also have to look at, if the show itself isn't well received, and then you leading 2 months later into House of the Dragon with that sour taste in people's mouths, yeah, that's going
Mhm.
to hurt the show. They really do need to push it out further just to give people time to digest and to, if anything, any ill will that, could come from the one series. And it's like you said with the Last Jedi and Solo, they should have pushed Solo to December of the next year. They shouldn't have done it in May, and I think that would have done a lot better, because it was a fairly decent movie. I enjoyed it, but everybody had Star Wars fatigue, and it's same with Marvel. Marvel is doing, they're trying to be a little better with it right now, but
Yeah.
superhero fatigue is a thing. They between DC and Marvel, they're pushing out so much superhero stuff that people aren't getting a chance to recover from the last movie. So I think anything Game of Thrones related, Westeros related, anything like that does need to be spaced out properly to avoid the mistakes that Star Wars, Marvel, and DC have all been making.
Last question for Randy before we let you go. And then, Sean, I'll ask you the question as well. What are you looking forward to more from the world of Westeros in 2026? Night of the Seven Kingdoms or House of the Dragon Season 3?
I would definitely say House of the Dragon season 3, mainly because season 2, like it fully. I mean, as much as I enjoyed season 1 and it did hook me, the story that they told in season 2 really kind of got me super excited. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta wait till season 3 for this to play out. No, I want
Mhm.
more now. And that's what you need out of a series, is to be like, no, this can't be over. Why is this the season finale? We can't have this. So that's one of the reasons why for me it's a known property, one that I'm already fully vested in, and I'm ready to see more of the story. Whereas, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's a brand new IP where I'm going to be learning about a new character for the first time. And I'm not saying I'm not going to enjoy it or have fun with it. I'm just not as emotionally invested in it as I am with House of the Dragon.
That's fair. That's fair. Sean, same question.
The Jon Snow show, damn it. It was supposed to be out this year, 2025, when it was first brought up. It's real to me, man. Um, House of the Dragon, season 3. It's not even close. I'm not. Again, I think there's a chance I might be pleasantly surprised by A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Look, very talented people behind it. I'm sure they're going to find a way to make people want to tune in. They're very good at what they do. Um, like, to me, still the pinnacle. Still, when you rifle off Game of Thrones, followed up by House of the Dragon, there's a lot of good people that have rifled off one of the best shows ever. There's not a lot of people that have rifled off two of the best shows back to back. So, although I suppose it's not back to back if you want to count Blood Moon and what happened there. So, um,
Well, and I know some people who are really big Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fans. If there was ever going to be a contender for rattling off two successes in a row, I think Game of Thrones and the Breaking Bad universe are probably the leaders of the pack.
do they have a third one coming?
I I don't know.
I'd be curious to put them up against one another. But yeah, House of the Dragon, man. I love the story they're telling there. I'm sad that we basically have 16 episodes to go. But looking forward to it a lot.
Well, we're going to be getting plenty of our fill of Westeros content here on Bannerman Banter. We'll try and do some stuff leading up to that debut whenever we get an official release date. And we'll have plenty of people on to help with the episode by episode discussions. Randy amongst them. But Randy, for now, thanks so much for being on for this first segment of the show. Where can the folks find you when you're not guesting on stuff like this?
So over on X, you can find me at Giggity Giles every Tuesday night. The Mask of Fear and obviously every so often you'll find me here. But also, if with the NFL season in full swing, if you're interested in sports, bullshit, drinking, and just having a fun time where we just rip into each other and rip into everything, you can Google Sports and Brew because I've been doing that pretty much literally right after we get through with Mask and Fear. I've been going and recording Sports Brew right after that. So, but yeah, Google Sports and Brew and you can find it no problem.
After going down by a couple of scores, the Jaguars have roared back and are leading Kansas City 21-14 in the fourth. I have a suspicion that may be one of your conversation topics in an upcoming episode. And
Oh, no doubt.
we'll be looking
You
forward
can
to
talk
that.
about how good the Yankees are doing.
Fuck that. Get out of here with that.
Dude, I'm so happy that the Toronto's laying some lumber into them. I'm not going to complain.
I have literally no dogs in the hunt this year. Baseball season is over for me as far as I'm concerned.
Trust me, I feel that. I'm a Mets fan, so think about how I felt on the last day of the season.
That's rough. Oh, man. Giggity Giles, everybody. Thanks so much for being on tonight, Randy. We look forward to whatever next appearance we can get from you.
Thanks for having me.
Sean, it's time to move on to our second element of the evening, although we'll have plenty more where the Westeros content comes from here on Bannerman Banter. It's kind of implied in the title. But our next segment is one that we wanted to do and have been wanting to do pretty much every episode as much as we can. And we talked about it off the top. It's called the Gauntlet of Thrones. And so far, we have picked some bangers. We've had some really heated discussions, had to go to some tiebreakers in order to officially decide the outcome of the last episode's debate. This one is another one that's I would call it a heavy hitter, but one of them is heavy for its visual storytelling, and the other one is heavy for its emotional storytelling. And so this is going to be interesting because you said it was a no-brainer. I think it is up for debate, even though I know which way we're both probably going to be leaning. But it's still fascinating to think about. Our next matchup in Gauntlet of Thrones, as we continue to go episode by episode of all Game of Thrones content, whether it's from Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, 2 seasons versus 8 seasons. We have an AI program that picks the episodes for us at random, and then we just debate them. And tonight's debate is Season 5, Episode 8 from Game of Thrones, also known as the episode Hardhome, versus House of the Dragons Season 1 finale, Season 1, Episode 10, The Black Queen. Now, in Hardhome, Jon Snow is trying to find a way to convince the people of the far north that the walkers are a threat, and that if they don't band together, the wildlings are going to be the first to go, but the rest of Westeros and the rest of the known world is going to be not too far behind. And we actually get a great up close glimpse of exactly what kind of danger the White Walkers present, and have a great action piece. Probably some of the best action sequences in the entire series. Versus Rhaenyra's perspective on the aftermath of what the Green Council did in episode 9, trying to usurp the throne, trying to assert control and power, trying to play the politics game and imprisoning people or claiming loyalties where they shouldn't be. And then obviously the big moment at the very end where Rhaenyra sends her sons as envoys, and one of them does not make it out alive. The season ends with a look from her as she turns from the news at Dragonstone, and she has the face of not only a mother, but a warrior, as you know that things have finally come to a head and war is inevitable. So one is all out war taking place right in front of our eyes, and the other one is the politicking that makes Game of Thrones so great. So I'm curious, man, how do you feel about these episodes, and which way are you leaning?
Well, let me start off by saying when I saw this matchup, my initial thought was, yeah, tell me Skynet isn't real. That's where I'm at with this. Like, because look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here, people. You get Hard Home, and you're talking one of the 10 best episodes in Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what was the title of the finale of season 1?
The Black Queen.
The Black Queen. And just because I didn't remember the title, people, doesn't mean it's not good. It's amazing. Despite the lack of Viserys in that episode, it is arguably one of, if not the best episode in that first season. But you drew Hard Home. It's like you have one of your personal favorites that you're cheering on, and it's not just like a bad favorite, it's a really good one. But then you go up against a friggin' Empire in Hard Home, and it's almost like Mission Impossible. This is why I'm glad there's a one shot at redemption for some of these picks, because I definitely lobby this one to have a shot at redemption against something else later. I love both episodes, man. Like, they are. If I was just on a whiff doing my top 20 Westeros episodes, keeping in mind there has been 92, I believe, or 91 made. Both of these are in my top 20, probably in the top 15 too.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like, I would say episode 10 of season 1 is probably top 2 of all of House of the Dragon for me. I can only think of maybe one more that I would prefer over this one. And you put it up against any of the middle of the road episodes from the first 3 seasons where it's just politicking, where it's just moving pieces and plot development and maybe a few zingers by Tyrion here and there. You put it up against any of those, and it's probably moving on because it has so much to look at. That I'm just looking at the Wikipedia to kind of help refresh my memory, and I completely forgot that at one point, um, Otto comes to Dragonstone to try to demand Rhaenyra's surrender. Like, the absolute audacity of coming to the dragon's lair and demand that the dragon surrender is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it makes me laugh to think about it. Corlys offering his fleet um, to finally declare one way or another after he had kind of been on the fence for a couple of episodes, and then Luke going to Storm's End to treat with Lord Boros Baratheon, and Aemond is already there, and the aerial chase. I can't even call it a fight. It's not much of a fight when you've got Vagar out there, but the aerial chase that takes place in the midst of the storm and the misunderstanding that leads to the death of an uncle cousin, and next thing you know, you have literally ignited something that cannot be snuffed out. The political implications behind that episode are just enormous.
It's insane. Like, I I know we've had a couple of doozy matchups already, man, but I have to say this is the one I like the least, because in a picture perfect world, I would not vote either of these out in the first round. But that's the luck of the draw for any anime fans back in the day. It's like when Goku and Vegeta drew each other in the first round of a tournament. It's like, oh, there's the finals in the first round, and it's bittersweet. But I mean, I'm just gonna say my pick's Hard Home. Like, I love the Black Queen episode. I love that whole ending sequence. Even, like, first of all, the dogfight between the dragons is amazing. But the sequence after that of Damon telling Rhaenyra the long one shot where there's no dialogue whatsoever, and the whole scene is on music and facial emotion, is in my opinion, a better piece of acting than you see at any point during Hard Home. But Hard Home is this achievement that is bigger than better than most blockbuster movies get for a action piece, let alone a TV show.
I watched the first few episodes of the second season of The Last of Us. I didn't make it all the way through. Things took my attention away. Didn't get to finish it, but there is one episode where um, one of the villages gets attacked, and they have to defend it, and it's in the mountains of Wyoming or Colorado or something like that. And so there's a lot of snow, and there's these crazed creatures that are assaulting the humans, the last stand, if you will. And it gave me such hard home vibes. And it helped me realize that hard home kind of helped pave the way for some of the grander cinematic style sequences that we get not only in the Game of Thrones universe but in other universes as well. The fight with the White Walkers kind of helped HBO prove that it was possible, and then they were able to apply it to other properties, apply it to other series, to inspire others to continue on with it. So yes, there's great acting, not necessarily as great as Rhaenyra's turn in the season finale, but there are some great moments where John's able to convince the wildlings that this is a threat and we need to deal with it, and they're on board just long enough for them to realize that their lives are at risk when the whites come towards their settlement. And so, yeah, like you said, it's an achievement. And in spite of how well acted and well directed and well produced the Black Queen may have been, I'm leaning hard home this episode.
Yeah, like I get it. I wanted to find reasons to go with the Black Queen. I did, and that's not for not liking Hard Home. Hard Home's amazing. But that Black Queen episode is just it's iconic. It's arguably one of the best episodes in the out of the 18 that have aired so far for House of the Dragon. I'd have it definitely one or two. And it's uh it's unfortunate. Like I said, bittersweet. Cool to see Hard Home go on, but bittersweet to see the Black Queen either be out or have one last shot at redemption, which I would volley for. I do firmly believe the Black Queen would beat probably 80% of the episodes in Game of Thrones.
So let me ask you this. Do you think it would defeat Baelor, the other one that we revived?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I would
Really?
have, and not in a landslide, but I feel confident enough that, yeah, I would say I prefer the Black Queen on as like just an overall whole. Yeah. I think the Black Queen is stronger as an episode front to back than Baelor is. I like Baelor's ending, obviously. There may not be an ending of another episode of Westeros that touches that. But the episode from start to finish, I got to go with the Black Queen.
I have a feeling that the way the AI algorithm has been working, it may try to pitch saved episodes against one another. So do not be surprised if the episodes that we save slash revive slash give another chance to end up getting pitted against one another. I can tell it not to do that. I can tell it, hey, don't pitch these things against one another and have it, re-roll or reshuffle. Um, but I have a suspicion that that could happen. And so if we don't want re-rolls, if we don't want reshuffles, that could be something that ends up happening down the pipe at some point. Okay, that is it for the Gauntlet of Thrones. Let us know in the chat which one of those two episodes you prefer. Do you prefer season 5, episode 8, Hard Home, or do you prefer season 1, episode 10 of House of the Dragon, The Black Queen? You can join the comments, or you can join us on all the different various social pages, or you can become a patron with the Patreon link down in the bottom of the lower third down there. Be sure to give a thumbs up to this video as well if you've enjoyed the content so far. And be sure to hit the subscribe button so that you get alerts for whenever this channel goes live, including episodes of Bannerman Banter. All right, buddy. I do believe it is time for our spooky season centric discussion before we officially call it a night. It is October of 2025, and I know that the Mask of Fear loves talking about a particular mask and a particular shape in particular. So, why don't you kind of help us lead into this final segment of the evening?
So, due to not having graphics for tonight's live episode, you are going to see this little 10 or 12-minute discussion here go up on the channel itself with graphics overlaid over top of it here, if not this week, then next week as its own standalone thing. But for tonight, we are going to do John Carpenter's 1978 classic, Halloween.
And part of that is this particular genre, admittedly, is not the one I'm most fluent in. It's not the one that I can say with a lot of assurance. I know a lot about this franchise. I know a lot about this movie series. Um, I don't believe I've seen any of the Scream movies, and I don't believe I've seen any of Friday the 13th. So, unfortunately, this is on me. I don't give you a lot to pull from when spooky season comes around. But being around you as much as I have, and considering how much about Michael Myers this channel has enjoyed talking about it over the years, I did see all three of the new Halloween movies. I did go back and watch the original 1978 film. And so those are elements of horror slash slasher that I am somewhat familiar on. But if it's not the Halloween franchise or the Alien franchise, I'm afraid I'm not your guy, unfortunately. So just giving that disclaimer right off the bat before you all issue a whole bunch of hate mail at Sean. I am doing my best, but my best is definitely not up to the par of my counterpart here.
So, man, let me ask you this to start. Don't want to spend too much time on it, but had you already seen Halloween 78 before seeing Halloween 2018 when it came out? Or did you have to go back and watch that?
So I watched 78 first in preparation for 2018. I don't remember if I had ever seen the 78 film before you encouraged me to. And I wanted to have a foundation. I wanted to have a grasp on the franchise as a whole before going into it blindly. So this was something that I very deliberately chose to do. It wasn't like a homework assignment that I had to go do or whatever. Like I wanted to have a better understanding before I went and saw the 2018 film. So probably maybe a week or two before going to the 2018 screening is when I saw the 78 film for the first time. So I didn't grow up on it, but I did retroactively go and catch it so that I would be better versed in what I was about to consume in the movie theater.
Yeah, that makes sense. I saw 1, 2, and 4 on one night. That's how I started off, and I
Dang.
think I was about 12 or 13 years old when I seen them for the first time, and I'm glad I was showing them that way. It gave me a different understanding to those three movies together. Um, but doing this for Flixbusters is interesting because it is from 1978. There's so many different versions of the movie. There are wildly different qualities out there in terms of visual representation because now you have 4K and updated to 4K and things cleaned up. And some people prefer that. Some people don't prefer that. It's really on how you see the picture as well in terms of how you judge it, in my opinion. But this is a classic.
I don't
Where do you want
I
to get
don't
things
think
started?
I don't think I saw any of the of the remastered versions. I just saw like just a generic DVD version. So, as far as digital copies go, what I consumed was probably closer to its original form than the renovated, updated, revised 4K versions you're talking about may have been, because it honestly does affect my score a little bit. If I had seen some of those renovated versions, maybe I would view it a little bit differently. But in Flixbusters, we graded on 4 different criteria, and you and I sometimes vary slightly about what those 4 criterion are, but we give 25 possible points for 4 different criteria. And the common one that we for sure have together is the enjoyment factor. A possible 25 points of just how much did we like the movie? How much did we enjoy it? Regardless of its, brilliances or its flaws, just how much did we like it? And if a film is over 60 out of those 100 possible points from the 4 categories, then we call it a flick. If it is below that 60 criterion, then we call it a bust, which is why we have the segment Flicks Busters. Is it a flick or is it a bust? My first category is for creativity, which has to do with story, writing, and characters. And I went back and watched a different recap video from a different channel. That doesn't count as cheating, does it? If I'm doing it for research purposes for this podcast, does it count as cheating if I watch a Halloween video that's not from this channel?
Nah, if Johnny was here though, he might say we're cheating.
I went back and did a little research to try to remind me on certain scenes and certain elements, and kind of help me get caught up on some of the behind the scenes type things that maybe I didn't know about. And it did help me remember that slasher films had been created, but they hadn't necessarily been perfected by this point. Films like Psycho already existed, but this particular film, this 78 film, this video and then rewatching it has helped me realize just how much Halloween elevated this particular genre, even if it was on a budget. I really appreciated some of the POV shots that they did that were from the perspective of young Michael, and then having a not necessarily impartial, but like an outside narrator in the form of Dr. Loomis really kind of helped this particular film stand apart from some of the rest. So even though there were some areas that I felt like could have been done a little bit better or a little bit differently, I do see the ways that this helped elevate the genre, even if it's not my favorite genre. So I gave it 18 out of 25 for its creativity. It's up there. It is very deserving. It needs its flowers, and I feel like 18 out of 25 is a solid way to start it off.
So, believe it or not, here, my scores might be a little biased. I try not to. Try to look at it subjectively when the movie was made, what they had available to them, how it holds up today. And I had creativity at 22 out of 25. This is not my favorite Halloween film. It's not even my second favorite Halloween film.
Mm.
But when it comes to what they did way back when with $300,000 and how this movie sprung to life, was truly remarkable. And it's one of those things that doesn't happen unless you just so happen to have all the right pieces in place. And we're going to talk about some of those pieces momentarily.
Yeah, we will for sure. The next category that I go through the grading process on is quality, which is kind of in tandem with some of the other elements as well, like you were alluding to. This comes from the POV of production and directing and acting, some of the logistical things that help make the story come to life. And I will admit that Curtis and Pleasance really, really shine in this film. They really, really shine. And I went back and watched Freaky Friday and Freakier Friday over the summer. And I can say with some certainty that Jamie Lee Curtis just has that it factor that can elevate almost anything that she's a part of. Because I wasn't expecting Freakier Friday to be much of anything. And the way that she carried that film was fantastic. And she helps carry this film as well. And it was really, really cool to see. And Carpenter had a very specific story that he wanted to tell, and I feel like he told it. Um, Again, it's not my genre, so there are some elements of it that I'm like, I don't know if he needed to do that, or maybe some scenes where I'm like, maybe that could have been done a little bit differently. But I also have to take into account the time. I have to take into account the budget. I have to take into account a lot of things. But one of the biggest critiques that I saw in the rewatch videos that I did, and one that I have heard people talk about on social media and stuff independently, is the lighting. They just didn't have the budget for proper lighting and had to use a lot of shadow works and a lot of shadow techniques and light switch dimmers and things like that just to make the movie happen, period. And so while I admire making the most of what you have, I did give it a knock for just not being able to fully execute what it could have. And I look at the 2018 film. I look at, if they had a fuller budget like they did in the modern era, what could it have looked like? And admittedly, I haven't seen the 4K, so maybe that stuff gets cleaned up in the 4K fix. I don't know, but the portion that I saw, um, I gave it lower marks with a 16 out of 25.
So I gave it 20 out of 25, and actually, I love the lighting in that film. But I do think what you're pointing out is true. They only had so much financial availability to be able to do things, and
Mhm.
if it weren't for that, though, I don't think you come up with the nickname "The Shape" that everyone loves for Michael Myers, and everyone loves to go back to their stalking and waiting in the shadows, and you know, uh, it was almost like a happy accident in a way. But there are definitely areas where I don't think it holds up the best, and
Mhm.
um, so I give it a 20 for what it was back then.
Well, I will say I did go back to higher marks for the next element, which was sound. Sound design, soundtrack, and sound score are all the elements that encompass the sound category for me. And the soundtrack for this is just iconic. There's nothing like it in the horror genre, in my opinion. And then the inclusion of Oyster Cult's "Don't Fear the Reaper" as one of the radio songs that plays early in the film is fantastic foreshadowing. I loved that. Um, there are some moments where maybe they could have pulled back or slash included something, depending on what part of the film you're talking about. Um, but I do feel like there are some areas where the mixing or the inclusion or the taking away from could have been done a little bit better. So while the beginning soundtrack and the end credit soundtrack is great, and while the stuff that they put in the middle with the soundtrack is also really, really well done, there are some parts in the final third of the film where I feel like it probably could have been done a little different. So it's back up to higher marks. It's not as low as the last category, but I'm bringing it back to an 18 out of 25.
Yeah, for me, I think the sound design is the strongest part of this movie. Between that and the score, I mean, the theme, it's as iconic as it gets in horror. Um,
I agree.
Hell, iconic as it gets in pop culture. You know, it stands up there. It stood the test of time. There's people that go to see John Carpenter in concert perform it. It's it was amazing, and I've always said I feel like the sound of Halloween, whether it's the score or the direction of the sound design, um, separates it from Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream and Friday the 13th. So for
Hmm.
me, this was the highest category of them all.
Hmm.
This was a 23 for me. I think this is an entirely different movie without the sound. And funny enough, much like what
Hmm.
happened with Star Wars, is someone seen this movie
Hmm.
before Carpenter and company were done with the score, and they hated it. And then they seen it again with the score, and they had a completely different opinion on the film.
Hmm. Hmm. You know what? You haven't made the graphics yet. I'm gonna change my number because you're right.
Oh,
If it's not the way that it is, it's a different movie. You're right. If it's not the composition that it is, if it is not as iconic as it has become, then people's perspective of the film would be different. That's 100% true. And since nothing is set in stone, thanks to Canva, I'll go ahead and bump this puppy up to a 21. I'll give it a 21 because
nice!
because
First
you're
time
right.
for everything.
You're right. There are pieces of it that make it iconic and make it stand apart within the horror franchise, which admittedly is not something that I'm super versed on. But hearing you say that it helps it stand apart from some of those other classic films, um, that also kind of helps convince me too. So you said a 23.
Yes, 23. It's my highest of all the categories.
Okay, I'll give it a 21, and you give it a 23. I'm taking the math off to the side here just to make sure that I'm keeping up with everything. And then finally, the ultimate one is just the enjoyment factor. How much did you like this film? And I've said the whole time, this whole review, that horror is not really my thing, but this this is a fun ride, and it's a good compact story. It doesn't get too big. There's just enough world building in it for you to have an understanding of what's going on, but not so much that you feel like you need to know everything about every character the way maybe you would with Game of Thrones. Um, you know enough about everybody's individual motivations to have an understanding, to have a good grasp, and then it's ultimately in the final third. It's about survival. It's about, can you evade this guy? Can you possibly find a way to kill him? If not, can you just find a way to survive? And those are some basic human instincts that you put yourself in the main character's shoes and wonder what you would do in this situation. And I think ultimately that's kind of what certain slasher films need to be about, is about putting yourself in the shoes of the main character and wondering what you would do if you were uh, in their place. And so I'm giving it a 20 out of 25. It's not my favorite thing to watch. It's not something that I think has a high rewatchability factor for me. I probably only watch it every year or two, if that. And so, even though it may not have a high watchability factor, the times that I do watch it, I enjoy it well enough to give it a 20 out of 25 anyway.
Oddly enough, that is my score as well for this, a 20 out of 25. It's the classic. It got me started. Pleasance is amazing in this with very little screen time. Really helps push the narrative forward a bit when you don't know what's going on. Um, but again, it's not my favorite Halloween film, so on an enjoyment factor, 20 out of 25 for me.
There you go.
Now, I don't have the calculator here, so you might have to whip these scores together for us.
Yep,
I
I've
can
got you,
fill
man.
the airtime if you want.
No, I've got you. So we had an 18 and a 22 for the first category to give us 40. We had a 16 and a 20 to give us 36 in the second category. I changed my score up to 21 along with your 23. Then the sound department gets a 44 possible points out of 50 there. And then a 20 and a 20 in the fourth category. You add all that up, and it's 160. out of a possible 200 points for a grand overall score of exactly 80%. So there you have
We
it,
just
folks.
missed Halloween 78 being 78.
Just missed it by a little bit. I wonder what it would have been if I had left my my score what it was of 18. If I had done 18 plus 23 plus 18 plus 22 plus blah 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 16 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20. That would have been 157 out of 200. That would have been 78.5%. So you convincing me to change my score took it away from being a 78 for the 78 film. But I think 80 is very solid, and I think it's very appropriate for one of the cult classics of the horror franchise. I will add one more thing before we finish up this topic. The rewatch video gave me one new perspective that I hadn't really thought of before, that I'm going to be really curious about the next time I go back and watch this film. At the beginning of the picture, you see characters out in the neighborhood, out on the street. It's a very broad, open concept with lots of places to potentially run away to if you needed. The deeper into the film you go, the more compact it gets. You start by going into the house and you're in the common spaces. And then you make your way into individual places like the kitchen or the bedroom. And then eventually from the bedroom, you end up with that iconic scene in the closet. And as your potential to escape diminishes, the more you as a viewer feel claustrophobic for the main characters. Your personal sense of escape kind of diminishes as the character's potential for escape diminishes. And so that shot selection of claustrophobia is something that I'm looking forward to paying attention to during my next rewatch.
Oh, it's 100% a thing. When you think of some of the wide shots we start with, not just even in that 1963 sequence, but once we go to 1978, shots of Loomis while he's driving, stopping where he stops a few times, the school being a wide shot, but as we go, you're getting confined to a house, you're getting confined to a car, you're getting confined to a front seat, and eventually a closet.
Yep.
Um, before getting, the shape gets shot off of a balcony and you go to check if he's there and he's not. You're basically opening it up to the world again that he could be anywhere. Very, very much a thing.
Well, it's a cool concept when you put a character like Michael into a mask. It takes away some of his humanity. In spite of all of the observations that Loomis makes in the film, putting on the mask takes away some of his humanity. And it almost makes him more a parallel for the concept of evil incarnate. And when you think about Michael from the perspective of just being evil incarnate, then of course it makes sense that you may be able to shoot or even attack or land a blow on the concept or the construct of evil, but you can never really kill it. And so I don't know if this film was originally intended to have as many sequels and spin-offs and whatnot as it ended up having. But if that is part of the story that Carpenter was originally looking to tell, then he told that very well. That cannot be killed, as Michael is not killed this film.
Yeah, I can tell you they did not intend to have this many sequels, and it spurred on a life of its own. And like we were talking about a few episodes back, there's a telephone-sized book on all the movies that were in development that didn't get made. I mean, there's 13 out officially, but there's about 40 or 50 more that were into the stages of, oh, we're going to make this thing, and then it doesn't happen. It's wild.
I can tell you with some certainty that I am glad we were able to make this episode banter happen, man. It's a fun way to kick off the spooky season here in early October, and I'm looking forward to any other spooky discussions that may be taking place on the channel. I know that there's a lot in store on the Mask of Fear. Why don't you tell folks at home a little bit more about the channel and some of the other stuff that they can look forward to this month?
We have some Halloween watch parties coming up. I'm not exactly sure when they're going to be. They'll be this month. And our goal is to do, at the very least, 78 2018 kills and ends this year. And one of the reasons we're doing those is there is a high quality fan film coming out in October from James Grimm and Grimnox Productions. It's basically the biggest Halloween fan film ever done. I would compare it to the likes of what you got with like Never Hike Alone for Friday the 13th. A lot of money went into this thing, and so and it takes place in between kills and ends, and we're gonna have the creators of that on the channel this Friday, I believe. They've been on here before, and being their movie takes place in that timeline, we're gonna watch through the movies and watch through their movie.
That sounds like a lot of fun. And then, of course, there's other programming that'll be taking place throughout as well. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to the channel so you know when all of these different pieces of media go live. And then you can also find bonus content at the Patreon, which can be found down there in the lower third. And then hit up our socials as well. A lot of those are in the link in the description, as well as in our little lower thirds that we've got here on our name tags. Sean, any other final thoughts before we call it a night here?
Other than we're live with the Mask of Fear tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Just a big thank you to everyone who watches, subscribes, clicks the like button. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to our sponsors. And thank you to you, dude. I love doing this.
Thank you all for.
It's going to make me watch Game of Thrones again. I know it. It's coming. I don't know where I'm going to fit it in. I already don't sleep enough.
The rewatch is imminent as we get ready for January and beyond, but that is going to do it for this early October edition of a very spooky Bannerman Banter. For Randy and Sean, I'm Zach, thanking you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time right here on Bannerman Banter.